Kia ora, welcome to Parliament TV. Over the next hour we present items from the TVNZ collection, from archives held by Ngā Taonga Sound and Vision, to remember the politics from our past. When the National Party took office in 1990, Ruth Richardson was appointed Minister of Finance. Her first budget, in 1991, was nicknamed the Mother of All Budgets. It was notable for its cuts to benefits and the introduction of user pays requirements for some health and education services. Before the budget was delivered, the Frontline programme looked at its likely impact.
Good evening, welcome to Frontline. Well, it's being hailed as the mother of all budgets. Next Tuesday, Finance Minister Ruth Richardson delivers her first budget, one that's expected to be the most important in this country for the last 50 years. Tonight we go to Palmerston North to gauge public expectation.
I can't see anything being in it for us, the way they're talking.
Ruth Richardson is so divorced from her fellow New Zealanders. I mean, how can you relate to them when you're on $1,600 a week?
And we spend a day with Ruth Richardson as she prepares for next Tuesday.
This is going to be the mother of all budgets, yes, as they say, duh.
Joining us in the studio tonight, we have the two former finance ministers who, between them, have produced 18 of the last 22 budgets, Sir Robert Muldoon and Sir Roger Douglas. This week's budget is being hailed as the most important economic document for decades, and that's quite a claim, coming on the heels of the Muldoon and Douglas eras. Nevertheless, Ruth Richardson's first budget has got the country on tenterhooks. Over the last few months, there have been predictions of cuts to health, education and welfare spending. Benefit cuts have already caused an uproar, and there have been sharp divisions in the National Party caucus. But what is the so-called man in the street expecting? Linda Clark went to Palmerston North to find out.
The true state of the New Zealand economy is not good.
We're not as rich as we were before.
Another 50 to 70,000 unemployed people.
We want New Zealanders to be in a realistic frame of mind, just as the government is, as we face the decisions in this budget.
Just 2 more days to go, and we'll all know how black the budget really is. Fingers are crossed that it does not live up to its pre-release publicity. On the eve of the budget, Frontline decided to venture into the heartland of New Zealand to see how people were coping with all this black budget hype. We could have gone to any town, but using a tried and true journalistic technique, we hit on Palmerston North. And what we found was a general feeling of pessimism, not just about the budget, but about life in New Zealand. And yet Palmerston North has escaped the worst of the recession. Buffered by Massey University and the DSIR, the Palmerston North economy has clung on. It even seems to be growing. But when we met Mayor Paul Rieger, we learned that looks can be deceiving.
Now, I know for a fact that over the next 2 or 3 months, a number of retailers will probably close their doors. A number of manufacturers, where they're people my age or heading on towards retirement, are now going to walk away from their businesses with nothing.
Are you optimistic that the budget will actually deliver anything for Palmerston North? Anything positive?
No, I'm not.
So what does that mean?
Well, I think it'll be more of the same for us, and there'll be more little manufacturers who finally run out of reserves. There will be more retailers who close their doors, and we won't get these things going again very quickly, if at all.
Surely things couldn't be this grim. In search of encouragement, we sought a dose of reasoned economic forecasting. We wanted to know what was on the cards, whether Mayor Rieger was right about the future of Palmerston North. And we're better to find out than here with Nairi. But even here, the news was all bad. How confident would you say people are these days?
They're not at all. They're very disturbed about what's going on, and they find it very difficult to deal with.
How do you see that?
Before, people would come and they would have a card reading, and it would be a reasonably fun session where people would want to know who they're going to marry, tall, dark, handsome, rich, you know, and all the Mills and Boon touch. Now they want to know what's happening to them. Can I tell them what's happening and where they're to go with marriages, with their children, and once again, jobs.
So on the eve of the budget, are people really at such a low ebb? We asked Nairi to deal the cards so we could see. It's just 7 o'clock and already Dave Henderson has been at work more than an hour. 6 days a week, sometimes 7. Dave is here at the stables before dawn and he won't finally finish work till 5 at night.
It's pretty tough on the family life, really. Generally, I only see Shirley, that's the wife, for half an hour and she's off to her night job, you know, so often when she gets home from work of a night, I'm in bed asleep anyway. So we don't, some days we only see each other for half an hour a day at the most.
During the day, Shirley Henderson works here at the Manawatu Knitting Mills. She finishes at 3 o'clock, picks up 3-year-old Dion from daycare, and after making dinner for him and 15-year-old Nikki, Shirley begins her other job as a cleaner at the Polytech. 3 jobs between the two of them, and between them, they're only just earning slightly more than $33,500 a year.
We just live week to week, get by on what we've got. We've got nothing extra.
Do you get sick of that? I mean, do you get tired of just making do?
I know,
yeah.
I sort of feel as if we're just banging our head against a brick wall. We're getting nowhere.
So how do you see your future shaping up?
No different. Worse, in fact, if, you know, they say the things that are going to happen in the budget.
Yeah, if user pay is implemented and they lift the subsidies on daycare, that's going to make it a hell of a lot tougher on us.
Earning just more than $33,500 makes Shirley and Dave's household among the top third of New Zealand income earners, according to the government. And so it's likely they will face any user pays charges imposed in Tuesday's budget.
How they expect all the low income people to get along, God only knows, but you know, to say $33,500 makes you a wealthy person when you're trying to bring up 2 kids, it's unbelievable.
Just making the mortgage and daycare expenses is the biggest worry for Shirley and Dave. But down the track, they're concerned about how they'll be able to afford to send their children to Polytech or university. Is it realistic to think that they might be able to come here?
No, not the way I'm looking at things now. No, it's not.
In what way?
Well, the way the government's, you know, making user pays all the way. There's no way, you know, you can afford to send your kids here. I mean, I sit down and dream some nights of me sitting here, but just couldn't.
What about your 15-year-old?
I'd try my hardest to get her here or wherever she wants to go, but realistically speaking, it's hard enough keeping them at school, let alone thinking about, you know, getting them into something like this.
What are you picking is going to be in the budget?
I can't see anything being in it for us, the way they're talking. No, I can't really, I don't know.
One of Palmerston North's oldest employers, Manawatu Knitting Mills, has been through the mill itself a bit recently. 40% of its workforce was laid off last year, and today only the insatiable demand of Japanese tourists for New Zealand-made jumpers is keeping the place open. What would be your judgment on New Zealanders' confidence at the moment?
Nervous, extremely nervous. Awaiting developments at the present time to see what does happen.
What are you waiting for in terms of the budget?
A signal from government that they're not going to be too savage in the extracting the money supply from the market at the present time, and they seem to be determined to dampen demand even further, and that's what can't happen in this budget.
Are you hopeful about that?
No, I'm not. I think the signals, if the signals that have been passed around in the last few weeks are anything to go by, it will be a very savage budget, and I think it will depress demand even further.
What is the future for a factory like yours if the budget is savage, as you say?
The future for companies like ourselves and industries like ourselves is gloomy if domestic demand is depressed further. At the end of the day, manufacturers can do one of 2 options: cut back to small cottage industry structures and or become importers. neither of which employs New Zealanders, neither of which assists the recovery of this country.
You know how Stephen went to Australia for the rugby team? Well, he spent $500.
A kid spent $500?
At 16.
Yeah, but where did he get $500 from?
In Bev Tavendale's house, every penny counts.
Oh, it's a spider.
Chronic arthritis keeps this former teacher out of work and on the invalid's benefit. Bev and her 3 teenagers live on $15,000 a year.
Tell me about the standard of your life on the benefit.
It's borderline. I have to keep saying no. That's the most commonly used word in my house with my 3 kids. I've got 3 teenagers. And it's basics, and that's all.
So what do you do without?
Entertainment. We only go to the doctor if it's absolutely necessary, and with my situation and with my daughter being an asthmatic, that's a problem. If we go into town, we've got to make it worthwhile and combine several things. But entertainment, holidays, clothes, treats, they're all out.
So when was the last time you gave yourself a treat?
I can't remember. A treat. Something that I didn't need. Oh, Lord, that's years.
Bev works as a volunteer here at the Manawatu Resource Centre. She was one of the founders of Palmerston North's Green Dollar Exchange, the scheme that sees local people trading goods and services with no money involved. So far, it's been a great success, but even so, Bev finds it difficult to feel positive.
I mean, I wake up at about, I think it's about 3:43 every morning and lie there for about an hour worrying, and I can't stop it. Just won't stop.
What are you worrying about?
Paying the mortgage, getting the kids' school cert fees and 6th form certificate fees together, I mean, and feeding them. It's all concerned with money. Every single thing's concerned with money.
What are you expecting to come out of the budget?
Well, judging by what's been said, I can't see anything joyful coming out of it, not at all. It seems to me that the beneficiaries are down on the bottom rung and they're going to be kept down there.
You could die now.
Mark Tisdall and Paula Allen managed to sidestep the plastic vampire, but they've felt the sharp bite of economic recession, just like everyone else.
We've done all the sensible things. We have traded down on our house. We have a superannuation policy for both of us. We have cut our discretionary spending. We run 1 car. We live in the provinces. It's cheaper here. And we still don't have a lot of discretionary money.
While Mark lectures at Massey University, Paula works from home as a freelance writer. Together, they earn around $55,000 a year. So if Tuesday's budget introduces the much talked about user pays charges on health and education, Mark and Paula will definitely be paying more.
Where are you going to find the extra money?
Well, basically, I think we'll end up extending our mortgage. When we moved into this house, we wanted to shorten our mortgage repayment period, but we value health and education for the family, and I guess we're prepared to pay extra for it. But to do that, there's not much room within our budget to do that other than extending out our mortgage.
You can go that way or that way.
Paula and Mark are expecting another child in October, so before then, Paula will stop work.
On one income, we can meet our basic needs. We can meet the mortgage, we can meet our bills, we can provide clothing, and we can pay our insurances and rates. But we can't do much else.
There's been a fundamental shift in my thinking, whereas once upon a time I looked forward to the future as a sort of growth, basically, and that our position would keep on improving. And now one of my primary things is fear, which is that I don't want to be a poor old person, basically. And it didn't occur to me until a very few years ago that was a possibility in this country. And it is a real possibility now.
Yeah, I would say for the last couple of years we've looked at ourselves and thought, what are we doing wrong? We're really bad managers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a kind of feeling. You think to yourself, well, maybe we were just really stupid, and maybe that's the problem here. But when you talk to other people, and when we've talked to other people, they're all in the same kind of boat.
Looking forward to the budget, what are you expecting to see in it?
I think those three areas will be targeted: health, education and welfare. I think we'll probably see quite a shake-up.
And the result of that?
The result of that, long-term for the country, is going to be a real drop in the morale and health of this country.
And finally, we have somebody called Gary something.
After so much bleak news, we'd come to this student debate, frankly, for a bit of light relief. The onlookers seemed chipper enough. At last we thought someone will have something positive to say about life in New Zealand.
You can't afford to leave this important area of morale-boosting confidence in the hands of politicians, let's face it.
Comic Gary McCormick has got a lot of mileage out of Palmerston North lately.
Up and over. I hope this doesn't become a regular feature of travel in New Zealand, but if it has
His
to be
spat with the city's airport authorities over the $3 departure tax has turned the original Gisborne lad into a local hero. But it seems even he's depressed.
Apparently, if business people at the top are confident that the whole economy is going to take off, I mean, that's nonsense. I mean, I'm not... that's a spurious idea. I don't think that'll necessarily happen, but I'm much more concerned about the ordinary people on the receiving end who have given up their benefits or parts thereof and who are trying to make ends meet and whose kids go to school without their breakfast or their lunch. I mean, what have they got to be confident about? I think this whole notion of confidence is a confidence trick.
At the moment, Ruth Richardson is planning and plotting her budget. What do you think she's coming up with?
I hate to think. I think that any budget should be based on Kiwi values, and that includes a fair go for everybody, some sort of sense of equality, and compassion for the underdog. I haven't seen any of those Kiwi values reflected in economic policy, and I'm worried that Ruth Richardson is so divorced from her fellow New Zealanders. I mean, how can you relate to them when you're on $1,600 a week, plus expenses, plus cheap Bellamy meals, plus cheap drinks at Bellamy's? I mean, how can you relate to the ordinary New Zealander?
Apart from the good Kiwi values, I mean, what is it that you'd want to see Ruth Richardson put in her budget?
I would be very keen to see an increase in the tax rate for people who can afford to pay. I earn over $100,000 a year. I would be happy to pay 48% of my income in tax. I think that I need to do that because I don't want to see kids down the street going to school without their lunch or without breakfast. I don't want to live in a country where people live like that.
This is all very serious for Gary McCormick. I mean, have things got so tough that it's time to stop being funny?
Yes, well, unfortunately, there's probably some truth in that.
It's a pretty risky time to be starting a business, isn't it?
Life's a risk. This is a challenge. I don't see any risks.
At last, someone whose future is looking bright, or so he hopes. Robert Rimmer is about to launch himself into business, the pasta business, all thanks to the government-sponsored Be Your Own Boss scheme, currently being piloted in Palmerston North.
I was unemployed you had to be actually unemployed for 6 months to qualify to go on the course, and I was just over the 6 months. But I've been unemployed now for 18 months, living on this miserable $170 a week, which is not much.
You might not be living on a lot more, will you? I mean, it depends how the business goes.
Well, it's going to be wonderful. I'm going to be living on more than 170. I'm going to be living on 200 a week.
And you're going to be an employer.
And I'm going to be an employer, and it's going to be great.
So you sound incredibly... I think you're the only confident person we've met in Palmerston North.
Oh, true. No, there must be more than me around.
Robert's business plan has been worked up and scrutinised by a team of already successful business people. When he opens up shop in September, Robert will be running a 7-day operation, employing 3 other people. And his own wages will be paid for the first year by the Labour Department. So without the course, do you think you'd be here today, standing in your own shop?
No way. No, well, I wouldn't be standing on my 2 feet. I'll be a bit shaky, but I'm not shaky at all. Because the whole course has been so... it's just helped you in so many ways.
Now, the budget's in a few days. What's something you'd like to see in the budget?
Oh, well, what I'd like to see sort of thing in the budget is this sort of scheme being funded, or being continued to be funded, so there'll be other people like me that can start these sort of things, these happenings, and let's be positive about the whole thing and we're going to survive.
Sadly, few people share Robert Rimmer's sense of optimism. If the people of Palmerston North are anything to go by, it seems just scraping by is about as much as most people expect. And these same people look forward to Tuesday's budget with nothing but dread. So what about life after the budget? What do the cards say about that?
I think it'll get better because I think people have got to the lowest point they can get and then the only way's up.
That report from Linda Clark. Still to come on Frontline, Ruth Richardson on the run. But when we come back, Sir Robert Muldoon and Sir Roger Douglas argue the toss. As the country braces itself for a tough and possibly revolutionary budget on Tuesday, we thought it might be timely to ponder the situation the budget has to confront. How did we get to where we are? Why have we gone from being one of the strongest performers in the industrialised world to one of the weakest? Why have 6 years of supposedly corrective restructuring left us with record unemployment and declining output? Whose fault is it? Joining me shortly are two men who blame each other.
It sells well, and so we might as well get something out of it and ease the burden on the taxpayer.
In one corner, Sir Robert Muldoon, architect of 14 budgets in the past 22 years, with the odd mini-budget thrown in for good measure.
Too late now.
Minister of Finance in the Holyoake and Marshall administrations from 1967 to 72, and in his own government from 1975 to 84, his hands-on approach brought the word interventionism into our vocabulary. Some highlights of his tenure were the imposition of wage, price, rent and interest rate controls, the instigation of the controversial Think Big energy projects, and the introduction of a tax-funded universal superannuation scheme.
The National Superannuation Scheme will pay retirement pensions to all New Zealand residents of 10 years standing who are aged 60 years or more. The scheme will replace the present age benefit and universal superannuation.
He saw deficit spending as a legitimate tool in the right circumstances and dismissed concern about one of his larger deficits by saying most people wouldn't know a deficit if they fell over one. His critics claimed that he overspent, overborrowed, overtaxed and overregulated. Enter Roger Douglas. Smarting from Labour's landslide loss in 1975, he became convinced that if the party didn't modernise its economic thinking, it would perish. He conceived a radically different, more market-orientated approach to economic management. When Labour returned from the wilderness in 1984, he put his theories into practice and brought the word Rogernomics into the vernacular. Agricultural subsidies, export incentives and import licences were abolished and tariffs reduced, supposedly to shock a heavily cocooned commercial sector into becoming more efficient and competitive. The exchange rate was floated. A retail tax called GST was introduced, while income tax was slashed, supposedly to leave people with more spare cash to save and invest. But the promised upside did not materialise.
We would simply be putting our heads in the sand if we thought we could give guarantees of that kind to any worker or businessman anywhere in the community. But that does not mean the government favours casting staff out into the cold. The whole point of these policies is to achieve the growth that creates new jobs for people in areas of the economy where they can make a contribution to their own wealth and to the communities.
Reeling from the shock therapy, farms and businesses went to the wall in large numbers, and unemployment became our biggest growth industry. Current government policy is essentially a continuation of Rogernomics, and its critics allege it will continue to have the same effects: more business failure, more unemployment, and ultimately, social disaster. Well, gentlemen, powerful yet divergent influences, both of you, on our economic life. I wonder if we could begin this discussion by each of you assessing the legacy of the others. So, Roger, would you like to assess Sir Robert's legacy?
Well, I think that the present government is really having to deal with Sir Robert's legacy. It's still there. The fact that during his period in office we spent something close to $20 billion in terms of investment or various subsidies, support subsidies, for which we're not earning a dollar today. That costs around $2 billion, 2,000 million in interest payments, and will continue to do so into the foreseeable future. That's equivalent to about 5 or 6 cents in every dollar every New Zealander earns. The second legacy, I think, that this the government is trying to deal with in this budget is the legacy of superannuation. Sir Robert dismantled what the Labor government put in place in 1972-75, for which I was partly responsible, and went to a universal pension. This country now spends something like 13% of its GDP on social welfare, Australia 8%, and that's something which is a problem. It also has meant that if that old policy had stayed in existence, that superannuation, we'd have had $40 billion in funds. We would not have had the debt we have today. Our balance of payments would have been much more improved, but probably more importantly, half of what people would get in retirement today, they would have provided for themselves over the last 15 or 20 years.
Your main concerns are debt and superannuation. Sir Robert, what's Sir Roger's legacy?
7 years of a no-growth economy, massive increase in unemployment, 70,000 jobs lost in manufacturing, farm production way down. Even when our terms of trade improved in about 1988, we didn't have the production on our farms to take any advantage of it, and we're still in a massive external deficit. Frankly, there is very little that one can see that came from the Douglas policies, except a boom fueled by a doubling of the supply of money and credit in 3 years, a crash in '87, and I wonder how much of that 40 million of the Labor superannuation scheme would have been invested in Chase and Equity Corp and got nothing back. The scheme was faulty for that reason right from the very beginning. But, you know, I could go on for an awful long time on the terrible things that have happened since the change of government in 1984.
Well, he's saying he had to correct your policies.
What's that?
He's saying he had to correct your policies.
Well, the first thing he had to do was deal with a crisis caused by his own statement that if we're elected, we will devalue the New Zealand dollar. He said the following day that he didn't really mean it. But of course it was too late. The crisis came, everyone moved out of the New Zealand dollar, the banks were up to their limits of overdrafts, and then of course, in spite of saying he wouldn't, immediately on the Monday after the 1984 election, he did devalue, and that was the start of all the other things that went wrong. It was kicked off by a crisis of the then Mr. Douglas's own making.
Well, I don't really want to argue that.
Well, you can't argue it.
Well, I think, Sir Robert, you're the only person in New Zealand who believes it, quite frankly. I mean,
well, it happens to be a fact.
It's ludicrous. The whole banking world around the world and most New Zealanders knew that what was in existence in July '84 was a nonsense.
But you devalued and then you proceeded to lift all the remnants of Sir Robert's controls, which meant that inflation was bound to skyrocket, and that's exactly what happened. And then we had to have that high interest rate regime to fight that, which has been the impediment to economic growth ever since.
Not so. It was inevitable that we had to go through a period such as that. When you had, and we in New Zealand, had the most regulated economy in the OECD, we weren't very far away from the East European model, quite frankly, in 1984. We certainly had regulated interest rates, exchange rates, we had regulated rents, etc. And that was something that we had to deal with. And we moved away from that, and for a period of time, I mean, we've now got lower inflation and lower interest rates than we had under Sir Robert's regulated world.
And we've got negative growth and record unemployment.
Well, let's take unemployment. I do not believe that we've got record unemployment. Some of these jobs we've got, yes, but where did it come from? I just do not accept. For example, there are now 8,000 people in railways where there was 22, but the output's the same. There is only 14,000. It is 90%.
Now, Mr. Douglas, you mustn't say things that are not true, because railways have divested themselves of a lot of the things they were doing in earlier years.
Sorry.
Now, you tell that to some of the railwaymen who lost their jobs. They're listening, they're watching, and they don't believe you.
The productivity in railways is up 100%, and real costs are down.
Productivity, the famous word, productivity. Half the number doing slightly more than half the work.
No.
And the other half on the dole.
No,
that's
not at all.
Productivity in your terms.
8,000 doing what 22,000 did basically
and the others
before.
on the dole, because railways has been condensed
No, I see.
under your policies.
Not at all.
Gentlemen,
Because
all right, let's leave the railways for a moment. Can I put it to you both that on the basis of these statistical records, it's actually hard to tell the difference between you because you both presided over mediocre GDP performance. You both
wait
presided,
a moment, Lindsay.
yeah,
No,
1.4%
no,
average,
8.5%,
about half the OECD.
which everyone refuses to admit. In my final year,
I'm talking about the average for
yes,
your 9
I know
years,
you are,
and
you're,
it's very
you're
close to his.
ignoring the high growth rate that we passed on to this gentleman and which he killed stone dead on the Monday after the election.
Yes, and you managed to do that by investing in a refinery more than $2 billion, Nui more than $2 billion,
Right.
New Zealand Steel more than $2 billion, all of which had to be written off. $20 billion in total, which is useless and not earning a dollar. Worthless
not the useless one, Mr. Douglas.
Worthless
The
in terms
last
of
year
earning a
that I
dollar
have,
for the
which
government.
is the June 1990 year, those Think Big projects, after the payment of interest, earned or saved $1.5 billion in overseas funds, which means that if we had not had them, our external deficit last year would have been $1.5 billion higher.
Not so.
You only use the statistics that suit you.
No,
I will use them all, and I'll answer any point you like to make in the statistical field with the truth.
Can I come back to the points that you have in common? I mentioned GDP performance, also quantum leaps in unemployment under both of you, significant rises in public debt, and both of you at one stage had inflation at 18%. So, I mean, as far as the punt is concerned, what's in it? What really is the difference?
Well, what's in it is that, sure, we had restraints for a couple of years when our deal with the Federation of Labor on a wage tax trade-off broke down, and that's what everyone remembers. But from the beginning of the time I came in as Prime Minister, we started slowly removing those old controls. The first was in March 1976. Then we had this trouble with the trade union movement. By the time the election came in '84, those controls were off. We had a real rate of growth of 8.5%. Interest rates were based on 8%, which was about a 4% real rate. And the unemployment thing, sure, was high. But with that growth rate, if we could have kept it, if we hadn't changed those policies, that would have taken care of a lot of the unemployment.
Totally
we were getting the production
and
from
you
farm.
know it. A
We were
deficit
getting
of 10% of GDP.
We were getting the product from the manufacturers. Export of manufactured goods increased 8-fold in those years when I was Prime Minister. Our farm production was way up. Sure, Mr. Douglas will say, I'm sorry, Sir Roger will say it was subsidised, but it came down. Our lamb kill came down in his time from 39 million to about 22 million.
Exactly.
And exactly,
it went up.
but why?
Yeah, let me answer that.
Yes,
let me answer that.
Quickly,
because what you did, but you spent $1.5 billion in order to increase production from 26 million to 39, and then we simply could not sell it. And that was the basis. When the world was saying they did not want any more lamb, you subsidised farmers to increase the production, and that was the basis of why we destroyed farming. Your low interest price rise put land prices up too much.
We did sell
it.
We did sell our product
at a
we
very low price because
Iran
sat there and got it at any price they liked because we had a stockpile.
Gentlemen, okay, enough history for the moment. Let's
you
shortly
introduce the history. I wanted to talk about the budget tonight.
We will. Let's look at the present and your prescriptions for the budget after the break. Well, gentlemen, our credit rating agencies are telling us that the avoidance of a downgrading in our credit rating is contingent upon continuation of current policies, specifically spending cuts and the pruning of welfare expenditure. Every indication would appear to be that that's what's going to happen. What do you think should happen?
Well, first of all, we are told that our credit rating agencies are telling us that. That puts it more precisely. Many of the messages that are coming from overseas financial sources are coming from people who have a direct interest in policies such as the Douglas Labor Party carried out. Now, the reality is somewhat different.
Who are these people with the direct interest?
Well, CS First Boston, for example, who make a lot of money out of fiddling around with the New Zealand dollar. I'm just naming one. And they tell us we should carry on. And then we get a message, I got one from Warburg's in London the other day, that we're doing very well. Warburgs have represented New Zealand in London for about 30 years. Their job is to sell the policies of the government of the day. And so on, we go on. When you see a statement on economic policy, look who's making it. If Mr. Douglas, if Sir Roger makes it, or I make it, you say, there's a politician. You know, we don't take too much out of that. But they don't say that when some financial organisation who is making a lot of money out of the present policies said, let's continue them.
What should happen in the budget, Sir Roger?
Well, I think that what this government has to do is really finish the job we started in 1984 and came to a halt in January 88 when Longy pulled the plug, as it were. Now, there were a number of things I think they've got to deal with, and we can talk about how they've got to deal with, in my view, the poverty trap that exists in New Zealand, which means that a lot of people are in fact better off on the dole or not earning.
Hardly not the case anymore, is it?
Yes, well, we can give you plenty of examples if you like. I think health needs to be
I
dealt
don't
with.
believe you can,
Education, I'm sure I can if you want me to.
Yes, go ahead.
Accident compensation, social welfare and housing. Those are the areas that need to be dealt with.
Don't dodge the issue. Tell us these people who are better off on the dole.
Yes, well, there was, for example, a person in a state house, and there are many, when they earn an extra $1, find that 28 cents goes in tax, they lose 20 cents of their...
No, you said better off.
They can... Well, let me finish. They can, and they lose 20 cents when they their family support goes and they have their rent put up 40 cents. So they lose 88 cents out of $1. They find, in fact, that they are worse off. Or they can be if they earn $60 as in addition to the dole, which they can earn without, in fact, being penalised.
No, it was
really want to focus on what the budget should
yes,
should
I
do.
think that's really what we should be talking about, and my belief is that it's got to be aimed squarely at getting people into jobs. We talk about the internal deficit, we talk about social welfare spending. The one that we could deal with and should deal with is social welfare spending on the dole, because it is destroying people, not having jobs. Aim it at growth. We've had a no-growth economy ever since the beginning of the Douglas era. Now, we want growth back in the economy. The thrust of the budget should be towards growth. You saw people on this show tonight saying that they're worried, they're in business, they're worried that confidence is not there. We've got to get confidence back. We've got to get growth back. We've got to get entrepreneurs taking money from the banks, which is there, but they won't take it at the moment because there's no confidence, growing, taking on people, exports, import substitution. We've done it before. We did it in my time. In spite of what Sir Roger says...
exports are doing rather well at the moment, aren't they?
Our exports are doing reasonably well. But the reality is that someone said the other day, we could have sold 8 million more lambs this season, but we didn't have them. Now, you know, that's what I'm talking about.
We'd subsidise to get that production?
Well, I wouldn't mind, frankly. To get confidence back, all these buzzwords that are things you mustn't even think about, to help someone to expand, produce, the subsidy, as you call it, will come out of the dole that's saved, and that man that's on the dole that gets into a job will have self-respect, which he hasn't got now.
What it will do, the subsidy to the farmer and to the manufacturer...
I'm not advocating it, I'm saying I'm not totally opposed to it.
What it in fact will do, will take $1 out of the private sector and make it into the government sector, and what it would cause again is exactly what happened during your period, where people were paying $3,000 for deer. When the subsidy was taken off, they went down to less than 1,000, where land prices went out, where ordinary average people who wanted to buy a farm couldn't afford to buy a farm because the low interest rate got capitalised into the land rate.
We're getting back into history here, gentlemen. In the present, so much hinges on interest rates coming down, doesn't it?
Yeah,
the growth
the interest rates will come down.
The banks are saying they'll reduce them if Ruth Richardson is on track in her budget, that is spending cuts and the rest. They seem to be saying they'll bring them down if she does what everyone expects her to do.
Well, again, I say, look who's saying it. The banks are trying to pick up some of what they lost in the Douglas crash of 1987, and they are charging interest rates that are higher than they should be, trying to recoup some of those bad debts. But interest rates are coming down, they will come down. I've no doubt about that. The Reserve Bank manipulated them up last year, as it did the exchange rate. It's entirely possible for the Reserve Bank to turn that policy around. I mean, these are not difficult things. They're simple things, but I repeat, don't take too much notice of people with a vested interest when they make these statements.
Can I get a final assessment from each of you as to what the position will be, what position the country will be in come election 93 if the Minister of Finance delivers a budget consistent with everyone's expectations, Sir Roger?
Provided it is not a budget which is simply cuts for cuts' sake. I'm not a supporter of that. It has to be a budget which provides incentives. It's got to be a budget that improves efficiencies in the areas I outlined. It's got to be a budget which, in fact, starts to change people's attitudes, gives them a bit more hope and excitement. With that, I do agree with Sir Robert.
Sir Robert?
If this budget presses down on an already fragile economy, we will go into a major recession, and the government will be defeated in 1993 because it won't have time to change its policies in order for the public to have confidence in it. Now, that's what I fear. I hope I'm wrong.
Sir Robert Muldoon, Sir Roger Douglas, thank you both very much. And when we come back, Ruth Richardson in training for Tuesday night. Welcome back. Well, we've just heard from two of her predecessors, what of the woman of the moment. To find out how Ruth Richardson is coping with the pressures of life at the top, Ross Stevens spent last Friday with the Finance Minister.
Ruth Richardson freely admits to being driven in her conviction to make over New Zealand Incorporated. But at the beginning of each day, she still jogs to work.
What time did you get to bed last night?
Oh, well, 3 o'clock. We had budget to put to bed last night.
Thursday actually ended in the wee small hours, but by 7 on her pre-budget Friday, she's back into her stride, running on adrenaline and resolved to do things the Richardson way.
People have been up all night proofreading and just a fantastic team. And real spirit last night. We had drums rolling and violins playing and good theatre as well as good economics.
Meanwhile, back at the office, with the budget now safely at the printers and the minister in the shower, the comings and goings go on as the Richardson machine changes gear. The focus now is not on content, but on packaging. Key to that process is media minder Anna Simmons. And as staff get off to a somewhat slow start, Richardson willingly poses with something from her staunch national youth.
I was at 11, the budget. The budget is a statement telling where the government gets its money from, how it's going to get it, and how will they spend it.
And stamps her style on breakfast with her kitchen cabinet. The man from the Treasury, the ex-Round Table speechwriter, the economic analyst, and politically correct corn.
This is going to be the mother of all budgets, yes, as they say, duh.
The pre-budget sales get underway today with a chat to her local radio station and a clear indication that this budget contains major changes.
Now is the time to have that huge transformation of social and economic performance. I mean, we've been literally like that startled possum in the headlights. We've been standing in the middle of the road, startled, still, no growth, high unemployment. It's a very dangerous place to be.
If there's any tradition at all left untouched by the Richardson scythe, it's the required trip to the government printer to roll the presses.
You obviously have a tremendous emotional commitment to what you're about to start over here now on the presses. How do you expect to engender that same commitment in a public that is largely sceptical now about what you've been doing?
Well, the public doesn't know.
Right.
In the sense that they know the mandate, they know we were going to redesign the welfare state, they know we were going to live within our means. What the public will see next Tuesday is how we propose to do it in a way that's fair, that's affordable, that gives us services that work.
And so the press pack descends on Richardson for a dose of pre-budget posing, the practised minister under the watchful eye of the minder. And she leaves as she came, trailing clouds of electronic attendants, all like us, dying to cut through the rhetoric to get the story.
Let's just put some adjectives then on the changes as they relate to specific groups. The elderly.
It'll be very fair, but it will be very honest. We will ensure that the bulk of those who rely on retirement income as their sole source of income that they will be protected.
Those who currently expect to be able to turn up at a hospital and get a broken leg fixed for nothing.
If they're in a low-income group, they will be protected, their position will be improved.
School boards of trustees who are worried about their capacity to deliver what their charters require of them.
Education is a big winner in this budget.
Fortress Beehive, or Millionaire's Row as Helen Clark has called it, deriding those tall poppies who drive the Bolger government. So we wondered about more mundane matters, like the housekeeping. Do you ever sit at your kitchen table on a Sunday night and wonder how you're going to pay your power bill?
Yes, I have bills, I have budgets on a personal basis. In fact, Andrew is the budgeter in our household.
How much do you spend on milk a month?
I don't drink milk, but we're spending of the order of $50 to $60.
I'm asking you these questions because people, particularly those on the other side of the house, are claiming that Ruth Richardson and her people are out of touch.
Yes, I hear the awful knocking. It's a bit like the stuff that used to go on of saying, oh, look at that person, they're an egghead, they're brainy, as if we should knock people who have done well, who have succeeded. And by the same token, I don't have to be a financier to be a successful Minister of Finance.
Tears of anguish as meat workers learn who've lost their jobs.
But at the end of this day, some very bad news. 1,500 workers lose their jobs in the South Island meat industry. Tell the guy we saw on television tonight crying about losing his job in Bluff what he should understand about this budget.
Oh, he's going to be very emotional. He's probably not going to focus on the budget. He's going to focus on what went before the budget, the dead-end stuff.
Yeah.
I'm very confident that we can have New Zealanders who understand that, well, you know, they have made it, they've pulled through. We've said goodbye to the bad decades of doom and decline and deficits, and this is going to be our decade.
And if you fail the test, what does Ruth Richardson do then?
I never operate on ifs.
And so Ruth Richardson's pre-budget Friday ends. She high on her indicators, New Zealand Incorporated reeling from more redundancies. One wonders whether the budget she's about to present will be the light at the end of her tunnel vision, or whether it matches the colour of the bag she lugs it round in.
That Frontline programme was broadcast on the 28th of July 1991.
2 days later, the mother of all budgets was delivered to the country.
The Minister of Finance awaits the Speaker's call to deliver the 1991 budget, only her first, but in her own words, likely to be the mother of all budgets. Well, good evening. Seldom, if ever, has a budget attracted such advanced debate as tonight's. Even before Ruth Richardson has delivered the opening line of her speech, the possible content of this budget has been analysed and criticised by an army of economic and political experts. Well, shortly we'll know just how accurate those predictions have been, as for the first time we bring you the budget speech live on television.
Tonight, we are producing a bold budget. Our goal is strong and sustainable economic growth. That's the focus of tonight's budget. Strong and sustainable growth means permanently lifting the performance of our private sector, on whom our prosperity depends. It means higher standards of excellence in our farms and factories, our offices, schools and universities. In all areas of the economy, the government will be encouraging and enabling people to work smarter, produce more and compete harder in the international arena. A key element of the government strategy is to boost skills and technological knowledge throughout society. In an increasingly competitive world, the quality of our education, science and technology will play a big role in our future prosperity. The government is moving to put in place a more positive and confident environment for business. But it is the people, the investors, the employers, the workers, the innovators who really drive our economic recovery. Tonight I am announcing a wide range of government initiatives to create the best possible environment for jobs and for growth. Most important, the government is moving decisively to end decades of chronic overspending by the state. That overspending was funded in ways that cramped the ability of New Zealanders to generate that growth and those jobs. Tonight's announcements demonstrate our resolve to control, reduce and eliminate the budget deficit over 3 years.
Well, Ruth Richardson's speech took 87 minutes to deliver. It'll take days before a full understanding of the impact of the budget is reached. To begin our contribution to that process, let's first reiterate the major points. Here's Anita McNaught.
Thank you, Lindsay. User pays charges are the main component to changes in health. Modest income families will pay $35 for their first 10 days in hospital. This group also faces outpatient charges for up to 5 hospital visits a year. But their costs for doctor's visits and prescriptions should fall. High-income earners will pay $50 a night for their first 10 days in hospital. They'll also pay for outpatient visits, lose their subsidy for doctor's visits and pay more for prescriptions. Low-income families, however, pay nothing for hospital treatment. Their subsidy for doctor's visits is increased $3 and prescription charges reduced.
Tonight, the government is announcing reforms in social assistance to be put in place over the next 3 years. There will be significant changes in the area of health and accident compensation, in housing and welfare, and in superannuation.
Tobacco and alcohol prices go up tonight, around 56 cents more for a packet of cigarettes and about 4 cents on a jug of beer and 8 cents on a bottle of wine. There are major changes to accident compensation. From April the 1st, workers will pay between 50 and 70 cents per $100 earned to cover the costs of non-work-related accidents. There's also a new levy of 2 cents a litre on petrol to help pay for motor accidents, and a probable rise in motor registration has been signalled. GRI is reborn as national superannuation. As expected, the super surcharge is abolished, but income testing is being introduced for pensioners under 70 years old. The age of eligibility will rise to 61 next year and gradually increases to 65 years old by the year 2001. The current freeze on super is extended to 1993. In other benefit changes, the minimum age for the domestic purposes benefit is raised to 18 from August the 1st. The qualifying age for sickness and invalids benefit is raised to 16. The eligibility for the dole is being tightened, and low-income people are being offered a voluntary ID card known as the Kiwi card, which establishes their entitlement to health subsidies.
Now it is time for all of us as New Zealanders to begin building that future. I'm confident that we have the guts and the spirit to meet that challenge.
Low-income groups will also have access to an accommodation supplement, which can be used for either rent or mortgage payments. Housing Corporation rental rates are gradually being moved to market rates. The current stock of state houses is being transferred to a new state-owned enterprise. The government has also announced its intention to sell 3 state assets: the prime rate mortgages of the Housing Corporation, onshore Taranaki petroleum mining licences and New Zealand Timberlands Limited. The most significant change in education is the phase-in of a study rights scheme, which reduces most fees for students under 22 years old, but there will be a full income testing for students' living allowances. Defence spending is being cut by $113 million this financial year. From the measures detailed tonight, the government predicts a deficit of just over $1.7 billion this financial year, reducing to just over $520 million by 1994. Housing policies will also be revamped. Low-income people needing a home will qualify for a cash subsidy. Called the Accommodation Supplement, the subsidy can be used for mortgage or rent payments on either private or state-owned homes. At the same time, Housing Corporation rents and mortgages will be raised to match market rates. The government says the universal nature of the welfare state, where everyone regardless of income gets the same entitlements, will be reduced, and those most in need will get most help. But at the same time, it promises a reformed welfare state will provide only a modest standard of living, not one better than that enjoyed by people with jobs.
We are still a young country. We were born out of an optimism and a hope for the future. The future is ours to make. It is in our hands.
Well, the author of tonight's budget joins me now. Minister, perhaps not quite as frightening as we were led to believe. Were you psyching us up for something much worse?
No, I wasn't. The government always said that its reforms were guided by two principles. They must be fair and they must be affordable. I think it was the media that contributed to the hype. We've delivered what we said we would. A redesign of the welfare state that was fair. We've put our fiscal problems behind us like a family. We are now living within our means.
At what cost, though, to your election promises? For example, no increase in taxes and no new taxes. Now, we've got a lot of taxes here by any other name. Yes, do you want me to spell them out for you?
They are just small fry. I mean, those taxes, petrol, alcohol, tobacco, between them those increases constitute all of 0.5% of the total tax take. The core taxes, the biggies, the company tax, GST, personal income tax, not touched. And more importantly, tax as a percentage of all the country's wealth actually drops over the next 3 years. That was our commitment and we have honoured it.
Yeah, that's assuming GDP goes up as much as you say. And of course, projections in the past have been notoriously awry.
Well, the projections in the past were notoriously awry because no government for decades has put the country's finances on a sound footing. They've always blown it, as the previous government did. We haven't blown it. We've said goodbye to that sort of economics. Now we've got a sound foundation for growth.
Hoary old chestnuts, though, aren't they? Tobacco and alcohol to attack the people's pleasures.
Oh, as I
it's
said,
a tried and true
look,
trick.
They are small fry. 0.5% of the total tax take. Concentrate on the big picture. New Zealand will. The big picture is that we're the first government in decades that's taken the decisions to live within our means. We can take that sort of foot off the throat of this economy that debt and deficits have been for so long, and we can get on with getting the sort of growth that the world has enjoyed for years.
You may be putting your foot on the throats of the elderly, though. You seem to have reintroduced the surtax in a more vicious form.
Take our position on superannuation policy. It was clear within hours of being elected that our hand was going to be forced. What did we find? We found the first big unknown, the BNZ, $620 million, and then the other biggie, big deficits. And the further we looked out, the greater those deficits were. $5 billion worth of deficit by 1993. Responsibly, we could not turn our back on those facts.
But you acknowledge that you haven't really abolished the surtax. It's still there. The more you earn privately, the less super you get. That's basically it.
Let me say to superannuitants, because we're not going to muck around on this, we're not going to pretend. We haven't honoured our commitment. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry that we were forced by the circumstances into taking those decisions. But every New Zealander, young or old, would be even more sorry if we didn't face up to those issues. The prize is lower interest rates, growth. Young and old will enjoy that growth alike.
Well, except that you acknowledge there will be a continued growth in the number of beneficiaries, especially those on the unemployment benefit. That seems to recognise that there's nothing here in the short term, at least, for jobs.
There is a prediction, and it's just that, and it's a pessimistic one. I've been with all the analysts tonight. They say it's pessimistic. We have set ourselves the toughest challenge of them all on unemployment. We acknowledge it's going to be hard. We're not going to shift the goalposts. I mean, would you want us to give up on that challenge? We are putting into place the fundamentals for jobs. More successful exporting, lower interest rates, more confidence to make an investment. That's the stuff of which real jobs are made, and that's the platform for jobs that are set by this budget.
Now, these Kiwi cards don't appear to have gone down too well from reaction we've seen tonight already. It sort of smacks of big brotherism from a government that is supposed to get the state out of people's lives.
No, we're sensitive to civil liberties. That's why there is a major privacy information bill going into the House tonight. Secondly, these cards entitle people to advantage. 43% of New Zealanders will now pay less for their health services as a result of having access to a card. In other words, a low-income working adult, for example, used to pay $31 to go to the $31 to go to the doctor before this budget. Now they get a subsidy of $15. That's what the card makes available.
For some contemporary insights into the workings of Parliament, you can view a collection of short videos from the Spotlight on Parliament series. Just head to the New Zealand Parliament website at www.parliament.nz.